I had a really interesting last couple of days, especially Saturday. So, remakes are when you take something that existed before and you tweak it or do something else, right, to make it a little bit different or to make it very different, and then release it again. So, it is essentially the same thing happening or being made, but with a few variations, depending on how much effort went into the remake. And the one I always remember very fondly was Heart Gold and Soul Silver, which is probably my favorite Pokemon game ever still. And that's only because I remember like when I first got into, ROMs, where people you download a game because I didn't have Game Boy Color. That system basically died before I even was was like even mentally capable of playing. You know what I'm talking about, where you're just too young to remember stuff. But I remember I used to get ROMs of Gold and Silver and play it and just wish that you could actually like, for what must have been, I think it was 6 years. So like a pretty significant portion of when I was because Leaf Green and Heart Gold came out when excuse me, Leaf Green and Fire Red came out when I was in first grade. So in that 6 year period, it was Kanto, Hoenn, and Sinnoh, and Johto was just like the lost region. Like you could maybe find some of the ones that debuted in Generation Two, and and like other games. I know that in Emerald it was extremely difficult to get the Johto starters where you had to like catch every single um, Pokemon that was in the Hoenn decks. It was crazy. So it was impossible because I didn't have anyone that I played that with where we could even trade or anything like that. Um, but what I thought was so interesting was that it's probably to this day the only remake that I really feel just completely blows, or for the most part blows the original game out of the water, in the sense that it incorporated every element that had been introduced after Generation Two into it as well. So like all the new ones, new Pokemon from like Gen 3 and Gen 4 are also attainable. Um, it's got some like contests. Just there's a number of things that were put into that game, um, that even if it was the same as what came out 10 years earlier, it still felt different enough to warrant me playing it. Like they had actually improved in every conceivable way. Mm. However, when you get to the next remake, which I'm actually forgetting the name of, I know Ruby and Sapphire is like the Gen 3 game, but I'm trying to remember what the remake's name was. I think it was Omega. I don't want to get this incorrect. Well, you know what? I'll just look it up later. When you get to the Hoenn remake, that was a game I was mildly excited for because Emerald was one of the first ones I played, and I really used to enjoy that game. Um, but it's like they all the lessons that I thought they learned when they did Fire Red and Leaf Green and Heart Gold and Soul Silver, they just completely forgot about. So the Hoenn remake came during what was that, Gen 6, where they started using the 3D models instead of the sprites, which I remember a lot of people were upset over. That was like the biggest scandal in that series up until some other stuff that's happened. But what I thought was so interesting is that that game came during a generation where you had character customizations. You could make your character wear whatever you wanted them to wear. Um, and one of the first things they did was say, "Oh yeah, you're not going to be able to do that in this game. We want it to be just like Ruby and Sapphire," which was extremely frustrating because there are some people who don't like the designs of the main characters that you play as in these games. And I think giving them some more variety, like I don't see where it was practical in the slightest way. And that's why I often say that the real reason they didn't do it was because they were lazy. Because I can't imagine a simple character customization mode which is something that had just been introduced, and they clearly know to do because they used it in the game before that one, would be like extremely difficult or otherwise impossible to implement. And we know that that wouldn't be the case because, again, they had done it before. So that game was what's a good way of putting it? I still would say I like it. There's probably another main series game I don't like, but it's definitely one of the ones I'm the least interested in replaying. Just because it feels like they were just going through the motions. They were like, all right, well, we did remakes of these other two games. What 7, 8, 9, 10 years after they came out. So let's keep the ball churning. But you get the idea that they had a pretty good track record, and they would do these remakes that like actually improving the original. And then when you get to the Sinnoh remake, I mean, that's where it became a complete joke. Like I remember people were so excited at the idea of having because it was going to be like having full 3D models, right? To like walk around and explore. And instead of that, you get this weird little box man thing, and they're like, "Oh, we want the game to look like it did on the DS in 2008." It's like, but it's not 2008 anymore. It's been over 10 years. No, Akatsuki merge, you know what I'm talking about, right? A lot of people were excited for the Sinnoh remakes because they thought they were gonna have fully rendered 3D models that you could like walk around as. Like it would be the same gameplay, but you would have a full model. You know what I mean? Like no more of the like chibi sprites, and they purposefully did not do that because they wanted it to look like a game that came out over 10 years ago. I really didn't think they could get any worse than the Ruby and Sapphire remakes, but they did. It was very incredible. I had to give them a dubious round of applause. They took something that we know they could do, that everyone was excited for, and just completely wasted it. It was pathetic. God. Telling you, I've been that disappointed because I have a lot of fond memories with Sinnoh, even though it's probably um the region I like the least. I still think it should have, like it's still something I remember very fondly from when I was a kid. So it was just really disappointing that when they finally come back to this, uh they purposefully ignore all of the new improvements that they've made in recent games just to like piggyback off of what they perceive. It's kind of like it was almost like nostalgia blinded them more than the actual people that wanted to play this stuff because they liked the original game. They had an opportunity to improve the game in a meaningful way, but squandered it. Yeah, it was a complete waste of time for everybody involved. And honestly, when I see the way that game looks, it makes me want to go back and play the original Diamond and Pearl and Platinum as well, because at least with those games, you know that when they came out, that they were pushing themselves further. Like they weren't sitting there, you know, purposefully trying to stick to a certain style. They were actually trying to do something different. Or at the very least, you know that with those original Gen 4 games, they were going further with the concepts that they had for Gen 3. Like they were actually improving themselves. That's the saddest part when a remake makes you want to play the original game more. And let's not forget the infamous remake of Final Fantasy VII, where the game is called Final Fantasy VII Remake. I think any person that picked it up will go, "Okay, cool. They're remaking this game," and then you play it, and it's only like 33% of the game. It's not even half of it. Mm. See, the thing about me is that I'm all for expanding content, and putting new things into a game. But when you purposely title your game this old game remake, you are trying to deceive people into thinking, "Oh, this is the same game, but it's got better graphics and probably some cutscenes, etc. No, you're getting a third of a game with a bunch of new stuff added into it, um, because they know that if they put Final Fantasy 7 Part 1 or something, it's probably not gonna get as many sales. So it's a you see where it's a deceptive business practice to pretend to give the game a title that indicates, 'cause I listen, and this is just a fact. I really believe most people don't read news articles about these games. At most, they see a trailer, they see their friend playing it, so, like, there are a lot of people when they pick this stuff up, it's a surprise to them to find out about these things because they're not constantly watching it the way that those of us that might, look up news about this stuff are. So that was extremely deceptive of them to pretend that that game was, something new and it wasn't. Let me see if I can turn the brightness up on this. Yeah, it's about as good as it gets. My fave Pokemon game was Gold and Silver. I probably would say the same thing. I thought it was funny, like, the only real difference between Gold and Silver and Heart Gold and Soul Silver is that the levels have been bumped up a bit. Like, if you go on the Bulbapedia, you can actually see where multiple, like, gym leaders and, like, official rivals have their, levels increased by, like, 2, 3, 4 levels, 5 levels, just so I, I really enjoyed that game, and I was very happy when I found out it was getting remade, and I bought, I guess, like, what's it called? There was some there when Heart Gold and Soul Silver first came out, it had this thing called, like, the Poke Walker, and then there was this it was in this, like, big, it's like the actual disc, not disc, the little, what's the way of putting it? The, the packaging was, like, very special, I'll put it that way. It was, like, inside, like, I forget the case for the game was inside of this, like, big box, or this box that had, like, both the game and the Poke Walker in it. Like, I that's how early I got that thing. I was so excited. No, that's one of the few games where I just, like, always remember the first time I played it. Because, like I said, I there was a 4-year period or 3-year period, it was several years where it was we didn't even know if that game was gonna get made, to where people made, like, ROM hacks of the, I think it was called Shiny Gold or something, where it's like the Johto games, but on the Game Boy Advance. Um, so yeah, there for a while, we didn't even know if that game was even coming, and the closest you would get to playing it was to play a ROM of it on the computer. So Johto went from being the lost region to the one I like to revisit the most as a consequence of that game getting made. I hope Megumi shows up, but I don't know. I always expect the same old usual characters to make an appearance. Just while we're on the subject of remakes and making the same thing over and over. There was a Sonic port on the Game Boy Advance of the original Sonic game, on the Sega Genesis. And I remember distinctly, like, the original game is considered this big classic, everybody likes it, whatever. But I remember the port was terrible because it had a whole bunch of glitches. And there was something about, and I haven't played since I was a kid, but I remember distinctively that, like, I could, like, as a kid, beat the original Sonic, with the only problem being getting the Chaos Emeralds. But with that port, I just couldn't make it past maybe, like, the second zone. It was very difficult for some, I don't know what the the deal was. So yeah, that game was that's like the only time I've seen. It's not even a remake of the game. It's like it's been ported to another console, and it's impossible to even comprehend like how to. It's like it's been given some kind of weird difficulty spike. I'm trying to get a way to explain it. Like I played the original game on the there was this one Xbox release called the Sonic Gem Collection, I think, and I played it on there, and I was able to beat it. Excuse me, not beat it, to get all the way to the final zone. Um, so when I played it on, like the Game Boy version or Game Boy Advance version, it was like really weird. Like, why is this game not easy, but doable? Something I can actually get through most of on consoles, but impossible on a mobile, But if I had to say my all-time favorite, it's black version. Um, the problem for me with black and white was that they don't so it was really ambitious for them to make a game where it's all entirely new Pokemon because you so it can but because of that, it makes to where I really don't like playing it as much as the others because I do like the appeal of like, oh, here's some ones from generation one, here's some ones from generation two, from three, from four. With with Gen 5, I didn't really like I got black and white when they came out, but I didn't really like it as much as the older games for that reason because it just felt too much like kind of like a reboot. Like you could play that game and have never played any of the previous ones, and you wouldn't be mistaken for thinking it's not even like in the same continuity. I mean, those games already have such a bizarre continuity. Like Generation One is apparently taking place at the same time as Generation Three, and then Generation Two and Four take place at the same time, and then Five is set like several years later or something. I still think Gold and Silver has the best final boss ever because I played Yellow before I played Gold and Silver, and the idea that the final boss is you know, with a team that is something you can actually get for the most part in Yellow, because in Yellow you can get all the starters, you can evolve them. I never evolved Bulbasaur and Squirtle, but you get the idea that that final boss the first time I played it was like really heart pumping because it's you fighting a past version of yourself. I think that's the best ending to any of those games, just to this day. And the ending I like the second most is probably it's either the original Generation One ending where your rival has who just is beating you at every turn of the game is now the champion before you could even get there. After you've beaten the Elite Four, you find out he's beaten them already, like as a final middle finger to your hard work. Or probably the Gen 5 ending, the original not the one for the original Black and White, not Black and White 2, because not having a game that ends with you beating the league, like you don't have to beat the league, I thought was very unique. Like it really helped that game to stand out. Like, wow, we're gonna have like a super villain-esque final confrontation that's gonna make the credits roll. Okay, cool. So yeah, the endings for the original the original game and its sequel, I think, are probably my favorite ones to this day. No, because I said before that like Blue is the best rival I've seen probably in any video game because you have this person who like just divorcing that game from all the ones that came after, just like the context of just looking at red, blue, and yellow as their own game, or just red and blue. Let's forget yellow for a second. You have this rival who picks the monster that is that has a type advantage to yours. And then throughout the whole game, there's like constant digs that he's but even though you keep beating him, there's constant like little subtle hints that, oh, he's actually not that bad himself and he's doing good. He's got 40 monsters by the time you get like maybe 6 or 7. He's, like you're every time you see him, it's because he's like going back to some area that you're just now exploring for. Like the game is really good at showing that your rival is always a step ahead of you. And then when you get to that final part of the game where you beat the Elite Four and you're like, all right, who's the champion? Him. You see what I mean of how I know that rivals in these games like tend to be stereotypical, like they sit there and they talk trash and they call you out of your name and whatnot. But the original rivalry with Blue, I still think is very intimidating in the sense that it's something that worked very well. I like Yellow for that reason. I was getting burnt out on fighting the same elite trainers. Well, I like Yellow because it's the only game where you can catch all the starters. Um, I thought it was like that was the one out of Gen 1. That's the one I like to replay the most because there's updated sprites and it's actually got several unique what's it called, gift Pokemon, like ones you don't have to catch, so you can just go somewhere and get. I thought that was really cool. So I always usually play Yellow if I want to do a Gen 1, I guess, replay, which I haven't done in a while, admittedly. But you get the idea that Yellow's always going to be my favorite one from the original Gen because it was so cool to have a game that tried to make itself like the show because the show is like it's kind of like the MCU are based off the comics, and then they have comics that are in the same continuity as the MCU. So it's like you have a comic that's based off a movie that's based off a comic. It's a little like paradox. Like you have a game that's based off the show that was based off a game. So that I always thought that was really cool. That you can actually fight Team Rocket over, and it's the same two from the show, just over and over. And they get progressively stronger as well. They're like a secondary because a lot of people when they were like giving praise to Black and White, they're saying, "Oh, it's so cool to have two rivals." You pretty much already had that with Yellow, where you had Blue and then you had Team Rocket, and they both kept you fight them multiple times to get stronger. The only game that kind of has a rival I'm not the biggest fan of is probably Gen 3, but even I still like the game. It is what it is. These games all have pros and cons to them. It's nothing new. No, I would love if they actually remade Yellow on like a handheld system. Yeah, this whole thing has been really crazy. I guess Megumi's not showing up. I was really excited to see him. Oh. Mm. It's so weird how there was like this thing I was waiting to link to, and no, and like both of the people that I wanted to link it to are not appearing. Maybe if I go a little, I'm obviously gonna do like another hour, but it was just kind of it's like man of all the times for to not show up. Um, trying to think of another remake that was just unnecessary. I know that when this doesn't count as a remake, but it's like a remaster. When they put Silent Hill 3 on, I think it was a new like some console. They messed with the voice actors, like they changed the voice actors, and a lot of people did not like that at all. Um, I mean, they were like the game. I think played the same, but they did not like not hearing their favorite, you know, the VAs that they grew up with. I guess. You can kind of say that Kakarot in some ways is like a remake of Legacy of Goku, 1 and 2. If you really think about it, where it's like a RPG that covers the Saiyan and Frieza sagas, and you level up and all the rest of that stuff, and there's side quests. But the problem is that like I'm just saying it reminds me a lot of those games because it has a lot of the same features. I always felt like those games were made with limitations, right? In the sense that I feel like if Webfoot could come back and remake the original Legacy of Goku, they probably would have you be able to play as more people than just Goku, especially for a game that adapts the Saiyan and Frieza sagas. Um, but with Kakarot, it feels like they purposely limited themselves. Like you can't play as any of the humans. Uh, the only non-Saiyan you can play as is Piccolo. And then one of the characters you can play as Future Trunks only has one fight that you have to use him in. So it just seems so bizarre to me that in an era where you have all of this technology, these games are doing things they would have thought were impossible 20 years ago. They just really limited themselves with both their roster and the actual unique scenarios you could like. I remember in Legacy of Goku 2, if you wanted to fight Cooler, you didn't have to if you didn't want to, but if you wanted to fight him, you could fight him with whoever you wanted. And he had like unique dialogue with each person you put him against. That's why I say it really just it's so lame that you know um, this game came out over 15 years since those, and it just feels like they limit themselves on purpose. They don't have this ambition to actually make something that is going to stand the test of time. It could be remembered for doing something unique, for being different. It just feels like a run of the mill. The only reason this game is getting any traction is that it's not a fighting game, and that's pretty much it. The elite trainers used to frustrate me with how much trash they talk. Like, dude, you're about to get beaten out by my max level Blastoise. You better humble yourself. Well, that's the thing about these NPCs. They're always designed to like say something that makes themselves sound powerful, and then you fight them and you beat them in like one hit. That's what I always thought was hilarious. You you reminded me of like how one guy asked me why I think I did like a playthrough of Leaf Green or something where I had Squirtle on my team and it was like level 30 something. This person was like, "Why aren't you evolving Squirtle?" I said, "Because I like its base form." You actually have people that get mad or are like confused if you don't evolve like a Pokemon. Like they're like, "Why haven't you evolved?" It's like I just like it in this form. I don't. Also, if I get all three starters and they're all final form, the game becomes very easy. Like I've seen almost no version of any of these games where if you have all three starters in their final forms, it really is like a cakewalk. Like you can actually beat teams that are like 10 levels higher than you or 20 levels higher than you. Because I saw people that were able to beat Red and they only have their team in like their 60s. So it's very possible to just like be content with where a starter is or where some like what I don't know. It's just one of those things where I never understood why people get so uppity about it. Like, why haven't you evolved? So I think it's pretty obvious if I keep clicking this button that I don't want to. They get on my nerves with that stuff. But one of the reasons that Final Fantasy remake was so egregious is because I've never And again, I'm not somebody that plays a whole bunch of games, but I'm just going off of my memory. I've never seen a remake of a video game where it's not the whole thing. Like as bad as the Sinnoh remakes look, as far as I know, they're the full game. I've never seen a game get remade and it's only like a third of it, and you have to wait until they do a second game that covers another third or a third. You know, like it's just it was weird. I hate it when people try to ask you interrogative questions as if they're a detective. Well, that's why I don't understand. Like, if I want to play this game a certain way, why am I not allowed to? Like, why does it bother someone else that I do it? Like there are a lot of people who play with teams that I would never play with, but you don't see me, condemning them or like trying to interrogate them. Why did you put this person on your team? Because it doesn't bother me. So I'm just saying that like a lot of times when you get those inquests, it feels weird because you're like, hey, if you don't want to do this, that's cool, but don't try to like what's it called, like question me over a choice I made in a video game. It's not that serious. Seriously, like I've never understood the purpose of that. Like these games are specifically designed so that you can have any team you want, like, and then you're really like just puzzled that I won't evolve one of them. I mean, there are some third forms I really like. Um, like I love Charizard, for example, but if I like the first or second form more than the third or the second, I'm just gonna keep it in whatever one I like it in the most. That's just how it is. The only cancel starter I would ever evolve is Charmander, and the other two I just keep them in their first form because I just don't really like the evolutions form that much. I like Cyndaquil in its base form, so I would keep it in its base form. People would actually get mad at me over it. I don't know why. Why do you think it's the one that Ash caught stayed in its base form for like what 10 years, for like 500 episodes, until they brought it back and evolved it, and people got mad because you just now decided to. I think that's the only one that they ever like just stopped using altogether and then brought it back and evolved it at last, and it was like they put it right back in the box, like whatever, we're never going to use you again. But yeah, I like Cyndaquil. Like that was always why I wouldn't evolve Cyndaquil because I would usually have Charizard. So like, actually, by the way, there are some things we know about the show that I find really interesting. So like, apparently, one of the reasons why you get Cyndaquil for like the whole Johto seasons and it never evolves is because they really didn't want Ash to have like an overpowered team, and they always said like, "What's the point of having two evolved fire starters?" Like I have to admit, I understand their thinking, but yeah, I really like Cyndaquil. That was my favorite of the Johto starters for a couple of years, and then it like turned around to Chikorita. Yeah, it's Bulbasaur, Squirtle, Cyndaquil, and I think it's like the three of them. They're like the only starters I never evolve because I just like the base form. I sometimes might evolve Chikorita into Bayleaf because I really do like. I don't like Meganium at all. It's this green monster like plant thing with pink flowers. Or it's just I don't really like its design that much. So I usually just keep it in its second form. I actually have a lot of respect for people who keep Pokemon in base form because that tells me they are a skilled player and don't obsess over meta make max. Oh yeah, man, because Like I just play with the ones I like. Like I've beaten the Elite Four with like some team where there might be one member that's there specifically to like counter something that the other what do you call it that I'll explain it. Like there might be one member of the Elite Four that I have like trouble against, and that one member will be there for that. But like for the most part, the team is made up of ones I just have fun playing with. Seriously, if you ever see me do if I ever decide to do a playthrough of Yellow, you will, and even if I did like a playthrough of Heart Gold or Soul Silver, and I like hacked. When I say hacked, I'm talking about like not hacking, like oh I give myself infinite HP or something like I'm talking about where you like make the ones you want spawn in the grass. It's gonna be base form starters, so it's like none of this is done with the intent of getting through the game easily. Yeah, I don't. I always play with the ones I like. People are saying, "Oh, if you pick Chikorita and Johto, you're pretty much picking the hard mode." Well, okay. I'll play the hard mode. I mean, a lot of people would pick Charmander in Red and Blue, and that's the one that has like the hardest time getting through the gyms. That was always my favorite thing about like when you would like play a ROM and you would put the one you want in there because then whatever starter that the rival has that has like a disadvantage to the one you picked, you can then get the starter that is that they have a disadvantage. So, like for example, if I'm playing Heart Gold and I pick Cyndaquil, and then my rival, is going to have Totodile, I can then put in codes to get Chikorita and evolve it to Bayleaf, and then it'll just take out for Alligator every time. The only chance for Alligator has is if it uses like some Ice Punch or some other move like that. I only keep one fully evolved Pokemon team as a trump card in case my other Pokemon are defeated. People who play with a team of fully evolved Pokemon are sacrificing power for strategy. I just don't find it as fun. Like I like the idea that you have this team of monsters, right? So they are pocket monsters that you like because of the way they look, because of like the different whatever, like some kind of purely aesthetics, right? But you have this one member who's just sitting in the background, just lurking that when all the chips are down, you stick them out there. But you get the idea that I don't I feel like when every single member of your team is evolved all the way, it really like robs you of the fun of the game because there's no challenges anymore. Like Red was fun to beat because I was using Bulbasaur against Blastoise, or Pikachu against Lapras. Like it wouldn't be as fun if it's fully evolved starter versus fully evolved starter. I think one of my favorite matchups was when I had I think he took out my whatever water type I had and I sent out Typhlosion against Charizard and they were fighting fire with fire. They just keep using these different fire moves, aren't doing anything to each other. No, I know what you meant. I am serious when I tell you that those games, in my opinion, become way less enjoyable. Because I don't know, maybe I put it like this. If there's something you can do in a game to make it infinitely easier, which is evolving everything, and you actually want to have a fun time playing the game where like there are actual challenges and you have to do X, Y, and Z to, like survive or, actually make it all the way through, why would you like basically handicap yourself by always having to rely on these same couple of monsters that are they're only really like something you want to use because they're evolved. You know what I mean? Like I don't know, it just seems so counterintuitive to actually enjoying the game. Because I don't enjoy the game when it's completely easy. Like I remember a lot of people would talk about how hard Miltank was with what was it, Whitney in Gold and Silver. And I remember distinctively that I would always the way I would beat her because she uses rollout, which has like damage on Cyndaquil, is I would have I would get a female Chikorita so that like when she used that move, it does has no effect, you know, and it's like that charm thing has no effect. You get the idea that like that strategy has a whole lot less to do about evolving and oh look at me, I'm in my second form and about like actually being able to withstand hits from that thing. But a lot of people only care about winning because their ego to the thrill of winning. Yeah, but you don't think that's sad that like we can't just play games for fun anymore? Like everything is based around oh, how when is this one going to evolve? When am I going to get this new strategy? Like, it's just I don't know. I just feel like it robs the player. Like I get when people play tournaments, they want to win, but just when I'm playing the game itself, I'm trying to have some fun. Yeah, they have a lot of egos. I don't know. I just maybe my priorities are different. But I am serious when I say that if I ever decide to do like a playthrough of Yellow or any of these other games, even if I do something to like get all the starters, you're still not going to see me evolve most of them because I'm actually trying to, just play through it for fun. I say the problem with modern gaming is that it seems like a lot of people don't like. I get when people when you have kids who are like trying to win no matter what, because that's their thing. They want to like beat this game that's very hard for them. But it seems like a lot of modern games aren't really about how much you enjoy it, and it's just like strategic stuff. And that's why I was saying when we were discussing fighters, how when you have a game that makes every character play different, and you have these people who are like training themselves to play good with, these three characters, these four characters, these five characters, it means that you've by doing this, you've robbed people of actually wanting to use other characters because they're going to have to do this same rigorous process again. Um, and they're not doing that because they're trying to have fun. They're doing that so they can win tournaments and boost their egos. And it's like I don't understand where any of this would be appealing to a regular person that just wants to like I don't even know anybody that just plays fighters casually more. It's all just a bunch of people trying to enter tournaments and get in second place or first place. It's just I don't know. It just seems like at their core, games are supposed to be something you play for fun. And I don't really see that with a lot of people. They just kind of appear irritated and like trying to what's a good way of putting it? Like they're not. This isn't about actually enjoying the game anymore. Like you could pretty much get rid of the game's whole roster, and it would be these people would be missing nothing because they don't just play. Like when I played Budokai Tenkaichi 3, for example, I would play against a computer all the time. I'd put them sometimes very weak to like if I wanted to like test something out. Sometimes very strong. Like I'll always remember I'll give myself 5 people and the computer 3 people who all have like 2 extra bars of health compared to my fives, like 3 bars. It's like they all have 5 bars and I would, like it's purposely done to like balance things out to see if I can beat the 3 they have with my 5. I'm telling you, like people they just don't care. Like they everything they do is based around winning, and that's why I said like what fun is there to be had when your entire reason for playing a game is I can't wait to beat this person with uh my new move that I use and spam. It's no longer about having fun. It's about meta max and using the optimal strategy to ensure victory every time. I just think it's sad, man. Like that's why I said that like the current era of gaming is so disgraceful because you go back 15 years ago. I'm not even gonna say 50 because that was when we were like starting at Xbox Live, but like you go back to the start of the 21st century, to the 90s. When people played games, they actually had fun. Like because there was no internet, You didn't have people threatening to do something to someone that beat them in a match or going to their stream and trying to troll them. Like this stuff only started with maybe the last 10 or so years worth of I guess in evolutions as people call it, or advancements in gaming. And it's not I just see it all as like being very backwards. Like, what is good about a company that releases a game that is so unfinished that they have to put out what a literal dozen DLC packs over the next half a decade instead of just making a third game that has this stuff in there? What's good about having a company that tells you, "Oh yeah, this is a remake of this game, but it's actually only 33% of that game, so never mind." I love putting CPU at the highest difficulty in training mode because it forces me to use different strategies against. Yeah, just like there have been times where I challenge the Elite Four and I only have like one member of my party, or two, or three, or four. Like I said, man, when you beaten the game so many times, you sometimes just want to have fun, and like I don't see that in a lot of these other players. I feel like they're just very aggressive and trying to like ensure they always win, and it's sad, like I get it when people are in tournaments in real life. Oh, I'm on the I'm swimming, or oh, I'm horse riding or so, but it's just a video game, like I shouldn't even say that because I'm forgetting that people will threaten someone and say all kind of gross stuff to them if they win, if they lose one of these games. So I shouldn't just say it's just a game. I don't know. I just think gaming in the current era is like a sad state of affairs where it's just a bunch of stuff that is counterintuitive to actually wanting to enjoy the experience. It's really sad. I don't know. It feels that way about a lot of stuff though, where it's just like people are so adamant about. I'm getting a spam call. They're like really adamant about trying to win, and there's no there's like I've always wondered like what is the purpose of playing with somebody like that where just every match is this sweaty. It's a big part of the reason why there are a lot of people that don't like playing as killer in DBD because like your rank doesn't matter, meaning you could be the highest rank and still get matched against these new survivors that aren't that experienced. So it's just like a thing to brag about to encourage you to play more. But I know a lot of people where they're like, what's the point of playing this game where every match could either be extremely simple, right, or extremely sweaty, and your rank is just there for show. Because you have these teams like I think we've talked about them before, but they'll have the whole team will they like just to give you some examples. They'll do this thing where they all play as the same character, which is what a Swift is, where like some of them do that. And then it'll be extremely confusing to figure out which is which because they're all the same character in the same outfit, and then if you hit one of them, two of them go to heal that one, and another one is like having you chase them. On top of that, you have whole teams, they all bring a flashlight. You have whole teams, they all bring toolbox, and it's like I don't understand where this is incentivizing to anyone that just wants to have fun. Like let's say I played 5 survivor matches. Okay, I want to play as killer this time. Dude, like I'm telling you, I could play 20 survivor matches and like not get tired or bored or whatever. But if I play more than maybe 2 killer matches, I just get tired because I'm like, this is it just feels like there's so much more like there's always the worry that oh this team is going to be so advanced and they're all going to be like working together against me, and like sometimes I play as a killer who I'm not that good with, because um I haven't used them before. Like I remember the first time I played as Pyramid Head, I got stuck against this team where the guy was like looping me and I was just getting so irritated because it's like I haven't even played as this character before. and I'm not even like a top rank. Why am I getting this sweat squad? Like that's why I said that game just gets like I don't feel bad to have not played it in I think a month now. It's just it's irritating. But Kotzman says I feel the same way about the Marvel fan. They don't care about enjoying the stories. They care about reading what they want to read out of it and having the correct opinion. Oh, don't get me started on them. I mean, I remember. I'm trying to think of a good example. So like, it's true you can't like factually prove an opinion wrong. Um, but I'll put it to you like this: when you have people who say, "Oh my God, the MCU has turned into this terrible thing, and it's all so bad and it's awful," and then with those very same people, you catch glimpses of them trashing a movie from phase 2 or a movie from phase 3 or a movie from phase 1. You really have to wonder, when did this decline in quality start? Because when you listen to the same people who will tell you things are getting worse are the same ones who will say that a movie that came out 10 years ago was bad. So it's just I don't that's why I don't really take them seriously, because what's the purpose of listening to someone who's trying to trick you into thinking that there's this noticeable dip in quality, when if you actually like listen to them and contrast what they're saying now to what they said back then, there never was any quality to begin with. Let's say a Kotsky merchant, when he was underage, robbed a bank, punched somebody in the face out of nowhere, jaywalked, etc. And after he becomes an adult, he crashes his car into a building. Like, Akatsuki merchant is getting worse. He's declined in quality as a person. And then you look at me and you go, wait a second, weren't you the same one who said he was already bad when he was underage and he was robbing banks? You see what I mean? Of how you can't try, because remember, their narrative is not, oh, the MCU was always garbage. It's, oh, it's become bad since phase 4 started. But the same people, I'm not joking. If you listen to their podcast, you listen to like different clips of them that get played everywhere, they admit that stuff that came out before then was bad. So I don't know. It just and I said before, I did a stream where we were talking about how most of the guys that like give negative reviews to this stuff, like they always try. This is what I think is so funny. If you're accredited reviewer and you give a good review to something Marvel made, they say you're bought off, you're paid off, your opinion was manufactured because of your access to them. So you're not going to have like an opinion that is actually valid, or it's going to be skewed in favor of them because they give you access or they let you show up to the premiere, on the red carpet. And what really drives me nuts is that when you look at these guys with these channels, right, where they talk about all the different stuff that comes out now isn't good, what do you see on these channels? You see a bunch of ads, thousands of views. If they do a stream, there's sometimes hundreds of dollars worth of super chats. So let's be very clear about something. They're just as bought off. If we're going off of this argument that like people are incentivized to like or dislike something based off the money it makes them, they are just as bought off as the people that they claim are bought off. Because no one in their right mind is going to keep watching a film series that they say is not good unless they have some financial incentive, which is the case with these people. Told you, I used to read the super manga, but when every arc kept being the same and every chapter kept being like dragging on and it's like there's nothing different, I stopped reading it. But you have to wonder, if I was getting 30,000 or 60,000 views to talk about a manga that's not good, I probably would still, you know, be talking about this thing that I don't like and claim to be speaking of for truly honest reasons. Because I tell you that, like, just as there is a market for people that just blindly like support all the stuff that Marvel does, there's also a market for people that blindly hate everything they do as well. You go on Twitter for 5 seconds, you'll see all these people saying this movie is mid. This movie is low tier. They're so you understand that same group of people are probably going to go watch those negative reviews to have their biases confirmed. I mean, you have people that watch reviews of movies that they've never even seen before, just like there are people who watch videos that don't even pertain to them, and they're just like just checking it out. Hate mongering is a very lucrative business. Oh, definitely. I'll never get over that one guy that did a review of Black Panther, and he was complaining about all the women that had lead roles. He was like, "This movie has a lot of women. It's got T'Challa's mother and his sister and his girlfriend and the guard." And and I was like, first of all, that's actually not true. It's got multiple males as well. It had T'Challa. What's that guy's name? Zuri. His dad makes an appearance as well. And obviously Killmonger. And then I don't want to call him by his Marvel comic name. What's I'm forgetting the character's name. The Winston Duke character. I'm forgetting. I remember the name of the comic character, but it's something that could get me in trouble if I say it, and that's why they didn't use it in the movie. But you get where it's like, imagine having a problem with a movie because it's got multiple women in it with like a supporting role or like a leading role. You know what I mean? Like, isn't that weird? Man, that was one of the worst reviews I've ever seen. Told you I have a lot of problems with a lot of different stories, but the over representation of women will never be one of them. Because I mean, like in most superhero and shonen stuff, it's usually only like one or two chicks anyway. I said people are so weird, and even if you look at like Phase 4, it's like Doctor Strange has two, possibly three prominent chicks in it. It's got Wanda, it's got Chavez, and what's the other one? Christine, right? But the person who beats the main villain, shows them the error of their ways, whatever, who you see on screen for more of this movie than probably anybody else is the person that's named after Doctor Strange. I mean, No Way Home is like what, two women in it? Um, it's just so weird. Like, I don't know what I don't like, whatever. People are they say things I don't understand. You know what I mean, right? But like some of the stuff they get upset over is just really weird to me. Like it doesn't make any sense to get mad over it. And some of the stuff they say is like flat out lying, like just completely incorrect. Like this I think it was the Disney Plus Twitter account was like, this is referring to the Obi-Wan show, right? We are excited for you guys to see how Reva's story unfolds. So many of these channels took this one little tweet, and said, Reva's the real main character of Obi-Wan. This is a bait and switch. It's got his name in the title, but it's actually about her. And what was the craziest thing to me about that was that if you actually watch the show, and this is a factual thing, because people like actually will sit there and count the number of minutes of characters on screen. Obi-Wan gets the most screen time of anybody. Like this is his show. It's about him. He's the one you see the most. It deals with his like trauma over what happened in episode 3 and like the fallout for the 10 years since then. So it's like these people, they just pick a narrative, and no matter how biased, no matter how incorrect, no matter how factually wrong it is, they run with it. They get thousands of views, and the whole comment section's like, great video, man. I'm so tired of this woke agenda. Like it's so weird. What grinds my gears is when, but if you ignore their dumb complaining, you can Google it and find an entire 20-page list of black superheroes. I mean, the problem with black superheroes in general is that they tend to do better if they're part of a group than by themselves. Because I mean, like most people don't read comics, and if you truly wanted someone like Black Panther to be on like the level of Spider-Man, you wouldn't just go watch a movie every 4 years. You would actually read his comic. Dude, you know as well as I do that if Black Panther was getting like the highest sales of any Marvel character, they would have not only fast tracked a sequel to the first movie, which means they would have filmed it but while Boseman was still alive. Um, you know what I'm talking about. Like there's no way in this world that if they actually supported the main material that that character appears in, Marvel wouldn't more actively push him, but they don't. That's why his book's been canceled 8 times. Also, people don't typically don't like superheroes because of their yeah. It's man, dude. Listen, Storm is one of the most popular superheroes, X-Men members, and she is. You know what I'm talking about, right? Like the fact that she's extremely popular and well liked than more than most of the I guess European X-Men members should tell you something about like the fact that people really don't care about the ethnicity. Storm is just a really interesting character. It's like this little pickpocket that gained these weather powers. Second leader of the X-Men after Cyclops. She was able to beat him without having her powers. That whole arc where she lost her powers, I thought was really interesting because it showed how intelligent she was. So she's a really good. I think she is the best black superhero. She's just the one I like the most out of any of them because I just think the stuff with her is more interesting than what we get from a lot of the other ones. Cool powers, good design. Man, Claremont really did a good job on her. No, it's I guess we're not going to see anybody else show up during the stream and say anything. Oh man, I don't know. I know that people are like busy, but it's just one of those things where I wish that like we had a little bit more. I guess it's like this: when you want to vent about something, it's easier to do it when there's like a little small group of users you've seen before. You know what I mean? Like it's not as hard. I just hate it when the only thing special about a hero is that they're black. That's why I have no respect for people who only draw. Yeah, I don't get that whatsoever. I mean, most of my favorite characters are not black, so you know what I mean? Like it's just weird. Um so I guess we can get into the second aspect of remakes. Now, Akatsuki Merchant, you remember me telling you about a guy who, in the midst of a conversation, he called me. He told me to like get a deadly disease and to commit suicide, and like I didn't think that was funny whatsoever. That really disgusted me, so I had him muted. So I think I also mentioned that I only spoke to this person because we were in the same Discord server because I was invited by the like owner of it. Now, over the last, I think it was 2 weeks, this guy did this thing where he would keep changing my username to like first he changed it to some racial slur, then he changed it to like other weird phrases. And I've made it very clear that like this is a very trying time for me. I'm not really in the mood to play around. I just asked like, can this person just leave me alone? Um, to where I was even willing to leave the server over it, and I did multiple times. So on this past Saturday, the person who runs the server makes me a moderator, which means that like this guy can't mess with my name anymore. So then he chooses to change another person's name to a racial slur, the same one that he was like changing my name to, and then like puts an arrow to like point at me. Um, and I ignore this, right? So then he proceeds to because there was this whole like weird thing where I had stopped speaking to some of these people and they all were like trying to figure out who all these like I shouldn't even say these people, these men. But basically one of these other guys who's like I guess trying to figure out what is like going on or something links him my channel and then he starts to like post multiple things from my channel to like I guess try and make fun of me over and it doesn't really because it's all the same garbage, right? Like, oh, you talk about women not liking you so you must be gay, just stupid stuff like that, right? But what I thought was so interesting was that when someone has a username on a site that is not their actual name, oftentimes that's associated with like doing things that you would otherwise be embarrassed by, right? And then when you actually show your face and like are talking in front of a camera, those are usually things you don't have a problem being associated with. What I'm saying is it doesn't like the way he does it doesn't really work because you can't like to try and expose someone whose thing is that they just come to a server and talk about video games or some movies or some TV shows with public posts that they made on another website where they present themselves as themselves. You get where it's like the reverse where it doesn't really work because it's like why would I put up something publicly that I'm embarrassed by, Like but I was just thinking of how crazy this is because I always thought like I've had people in real life who say, "Not in a good mood, can you just not bother me right now? I have some things going on." And I always gave them like some kind of credence, like, hey, I'd like to think that if I was in the same position or condition, somebody would at least have enough sympathy to just let things be as they are. Um, but I just thought it was, and I ended up leaving the server over this because I was just getting tired of the like weird pestering right by this guy. But what I thought was so disturbing was that because I did a video about this other one who was like trying to threaten me with some old video from like 6 years ago. What I found very disturbing is that the same person who I came to see in that server and speak to, right? Like that's the only reason I'm in that server, would not burn this guy. So what I mean by that is when this other one threatened to like post this video, right? He was like, "Hey, you know what? If he does this, he's banned from this server." And he put his foot down, right? The guy that I came to that server to see. But then when it comes to this secondary mod of his, he's completely fine with him just posting all this different stuff from my channel to like try and make fun of me over. Um, and listen, in most instances, because I never go around saying people should defend me, right? Like you must defend me. But I'll put it to you like this: I want you to consider things from my perspective. I'm just going to use some usernames so you can like kind of get this a little bit better. Akatsuki Merchant. Let's say I didn't want to talk to you one on one, right, on Discord. So I have you join my server, or I ask you to join my server. And Megumi, this is not some Megumi that just hypothetical. Megumi is like tells you to do these like violent things or like wishes this bad faith on you, right? And he says it's a joke, and that like offends you, so you mute him, and then he starts like changing your name to a racial slur, which you consider offensive, as anybody would. Um, and then you say, you know what, I'm just not going to bother this guy, whatever. And then this same person, right, like starts trying to find other ways to mess with you, change this other person's name to a racial slur and point an arrow at you, and then like is like given your account on some other website and then like post links to different videos to like try and mock you over thumbnails. You don't see where as the person who you came to this server to speak to me, right? You don't see where as the person who is the only reason you're in this server, it's wrong for me to not say, "Hey, cut this out. I want to talk to this guy." And you are actively making it to where he doesn't want to speak to like be in here. Like just piss off. But he wouldn't bring himself to do that. And I told you that Discord is such an interesting website in the sense that it always felt like it was the only one where people could take normal things and make them seem like criminal or bizarre or weird. So, for example, I had a guy who tried to like say it was weird that I wanted to get in a relationship with a woman to then, have children, even though millions and millions of people have had children before me. So it's clearly something that a bunch of people do. It's not weird at all. But I swear to you, like, imagine in every other website you go to, whether it's Twitter, YouTube, Skype, when that still was a thing, every other website, when you talk to people, when you want to talk to someone, you speak to them one on one. Like my best friend, he has friends in another city, in my state. But when I want to speak to him, I call his number and it's just him and me talking. There's no cameos from, his mom or his dad or his, grandma or grandpa. It's just me and him speaking. Discord is the only website where people have allowed themselves to be convinced that there's like something wrong with you if you want to just talk to them one on one, even though in every other facet of both reality, right, the real world, and the internet, if you want to talk to somebody, you speak to that person. Like when I email someone about something, I don't have to, I'm not expected to then hear from five other people about the same matter. They're all going to be linked the same email and be expected to engage with all of them. Do you realize that that whole like debacle on Saturday would never have happened if I had stayed true to course of like not wanting to be in anybody's server and only wanting to speak to people one on one? And the reason I titled the stream "I'm tired of remakes," I should say, is because I keep noticing these parallels, like these things that are, and that's why I said that like in a lot of ways something may really bother me the day it happens, but just gradually not as much because the reality sets in that it's the internet and that people have been doing the same stupid stuff as pertains to me for years. But even like I was thinking about the woman that we discussed in the, what stream was that? It was the dissecting a dingbat's Discord delusions. And you'll be shocked by how many parallels there are from that situation to this one, where you have some person I started that like I had a call with like with okay, so the main difference that she has with the moderator of this server is that I spoke to him in DM calls for like a whole year. And then with her, I had one big 3 hour call. And then she tried to say, oh, I don't like having DM calls. But like you're in some server to speak to mainly one person, maybe a few other people. Like there's one specific person you're mostly interested in talking to. And because of that, that puts you in these scenarios where you're expected to also interact with these other people that you have no desire to speak to. And then there's some guy that comes around and says something that you either think is really creepy or profane or offensive. So for example, with this guy, it was the, commit suicide and get AIDS thing. With the guy in her server, it was, can you pull the expletive out of your just like some weird sexual comments, right? And in the case of both of them, they like of both her and the guy that ran his server, instead of saying, "Hey, that was wrong. I'm sorry that happened. You know, that's not something I endorse or condone in any conceivable way." Instead of doing that, they go, "Oh, it was a joke. This is what we do. We joke like this." She even said, "Why didn't you joke back?" And his response to, this kid sidekick of his is just to basically, be completely timid. Yes, it is sexual harassment. No one asked him to make that comment, but you could say the same thing about the other one. I'm not in calls with those two guys from those two different sources because I want to speak to them. I'm in those calls because I'm trying to speak to somebody else, and they are, you know what I'm saying, right? Of how like the situations parallel each other because it has to do with you being in a server to speak to somebody or a couple of people in particular, and then because of that you're expected to interact with these people that you really don't want to talk to with, period. And then like somebody says something disturbing or creepy or just really rude, right? um and then this person in their capacity as like the main mod tries to make it seem like it wasn't that big of a deal. Oh, he didn't mean it, even though he's a grown man who clearly knows what he's saying and knows what he's doing. Oh, why didn't you joke back? These are things that they say in response to this weird, creepy, nasty stuff that the people in their server say. And see, that's why I always go back to how it feels like, because again, this I'm not a kid. This stuff has happened before. When I was in I think it was about 5 years ago, there was another server I was in where I've mentioned this before. There was like a group, like people were offended that I was sending them friend requests or some kind of crazy crap. But like it was seven of them that just sat in this private DM talking trash about me. One of them like tipped me off to it, like told me that they were doing that. Um, and I remember distinctively that like when confronted, one of them, because this guy from Saturday doubled down, right? He's like, "Oh, you get mad over a stupid, expletive, right? Are the dumbest expletive, right? Because I'm apparently supposed to not get offended if someone's calling me a racial slur." Um, the same, like, but you get the point that he doubled down on his garbage from earlier. The same thing happened 5 years ago when I was like confronting these people over this stuff, and one of them was like doubling down on their garbage as well. And it was all the more disturbing because it was someone I had never even interacted with. It was like, so you're just basing your opinion on me off of things you heard from other people and like a screenshot here or there. And it's like, wow. But do you see how so much of this stuff is basically the same thing happening again, where you join a server to speak to somebody or a series of people, and that puts you in a circumstance where you're expected to interact with these people that you would under no other circumstance ever speak to. And then like one of them says something that's like really disturbing or creepy or nasty or rude, some kind of comment that you would never hear from a person that you actually want to speak to, because there's a basic modicum of respect that you show to each other. And then the main moderator like tries to minimize it, says they're just joking, says they didn't mean it, all kind of excuses, right? And then the person who did it doubles down, right? So that's why I said that, like, what is the purpose of being in these servers? Because think about it, like, I don't like speaking to most people on that site. And the people that I'd rather speak to, we stopped speaking for a reason. They didn't respond back. They act like talking to someone in the DM call is the equivalent of some kind of deadly disease, even though, like I said, in real life, people do that all the time. I'm not even joking. Like there's almost no point in talking to these people because they prove themselves to be indirectly responsible for like someone attacking you or bashing you or something to that effect. And then when they're called on to just very simple, because dude, let me put it to you like this. I would never ask you to join a server to speak to me and then have you around somebody that's like insulting you and calling you racial slurs and say, "Oh yeah, this is just what we do." If I actually want to talk to you, I would put my foot down and I'd say, "Listen, this person is here to speak to me. I want to speak to them. You are actively making it to where they don't want to be here. Stop it." How hard is it to do that? How difficult is it to just say, enough is enough? This guy's got some stuff he's going through. You know, I certainly can relate to that. He like, go do this somewhere else. Just piss off. Remember, he runs the server. It's like he's overstepping his boundary. But yeah, from now on, I'm never compromising with anyone ever again. Somebody sends me a link to a server, or somebody says, "Oh, I don't do DM stuff." Automatically, I'm done with you. I might not unfriend somebody if they say like they don't want to do a DM call. Um, but I'm definitely like I'm done joining servers to talk to people because I don't I actually value my time and I have a little bit of self-respect, and I don't think I deserve to be spoken to in a manner that is not befitting of the way that I talk to people. So you'll never see me tell people that I expect to want to speak to me repeatedly to commit suicide because it really is not funny, or to get a disease that has killed loads of people by eating away at them from internally. It's just like I fail to see the humor in this. And they always come around with their false equivalencies. Oh, we joke like this. And I swear that server has like 40 people in there. No one else ever made that joke to me except him. I'm tired of remakes. I'm tired of the same thing happening again. And that's like that was one of the reasons, since people are like so invested in the romantic stuff. That's one of the reasons I don't like talking to chicks. I mean, when you get to a point where there's like certain patterns of behavior they demonstrate toward you, where the first couple of days they're like really talkative and they seem so interested in getting to know you, and then like a month, by the time you've spoken to her for maybe about a month, the responses get slower and slower and fewer and fewer. It's like, what is the purpose of this? Like, why do something that you know the result of? Why participate in a system that you know is going to screw you over? See, I mentioned before that, like, in being somebody that's been on Discord for 6 years now, I've had my share of bad experiences on there. But I tend to notice certain patterns, and it seems like, because I remember that during it was like 2 years ago, I forbid myself from rejoining anyone's server. I left all these people alone. I didn't speak to any of them. I wasn't bothering any of them, and I really think that was probably just the best approach. That you can't to speak to someone in isolation is to give them the ultimate respect of your undivided attention, whether it be for an hour, 2 hours, whatever. And I think that when you get people in these group calls where they can just join in and like interrupt what somebody's saying or talk over another person, I don't think it's a thing that really works well with me. So I have this past Saturday I participated in my last group call. There will be no more conversations where I have to hear two competing voices or three competing voices. It's just a really unfortunate turn of events, because there is a part of me that does try to be, I guess, sociable. Like tries to speak to people about things, and um, what's the way of putting it? Actually, like get a conversation going. But there's no point in having a conversation where you're being interrupted over something you're talking about, so somebody can derail it to another topic. That type of stuff doesn't happen when it's just me and one other person speaking. Yeah, Discord's really good at like making normal people look crazy. Like, ha, you were not able to get with women. It's like, well, I'm in good company, because you actually look at the comment section of most of that stuff. There's a whole bunch of people that have the same situation. Um, I really used to think that if you just didn't bother people, you could like be left alone. But Saturday was a really good example of how that's not true at all. Like, I didn't say anything to this guy. I didn't call him out of his name. I didn't, you know, I was just trying to talk to somebody I want to speak to, and he just wouldn't leave me alone. And he was talking about like, oh, you get mad over and it's like he even after I left the VC, he was still like posting my stuff and trying to make fun of it. He posted a link to the first episode of my show, and I was really amused by that, because it's like, I'm supposed to feel embarrassed of a show that I wrote all the scripts for myself, drew all the art for, and edited entirely on my own. If anything, that just shows my innovation. But that's why I said you can't it's hard to embarrass someone with stuff that they've made public themselves. Because if it were actually something I feel ashamed of, I would have unlisted or privated it a long time ago. So I don't feel any embarrassment over that. It's just I feel kind of amused by the idea that like I'm supposed to feel bad about actually trying to make something original. I'm actually very proud of myself for that show lasting as long as it did, because I had to put up with a lot of garbage from voice actors, computers that were acting up, lost files, all type of different drama and behind the scenes stuff. So the fact that it went on for as long as it did is an accomplishment in of itself. But yeah, Kotsky Merchant, every screwed up thing that somebody can say about you or to you online is they can just they can make it not seem as bad by just saying it's a joke. So if I tell you to go outside and catch whatever disease, let's say COVID, right? Oh, I was just joking. Oh, Akatsuki merchant, you upset me. I hope you wake up tomorrow and what's another disease? You have swine flu or Ebola. Like how I don't understand where this is supposed to be funny. And again, I ask, what self-respecting person would willfully talk to people who say that type of stuff to them? Because I said before in real life and even with the few people I speak to online, we don't talk this way to each other. I don't call them out of their name. I don't tell them to shut up. I don't call them tell them I hope they get some deadly disease. Like I really I don't know people that act this way. I really don't. I just think it's really nuts that I even like I'm supposed to feel that I'm, like, getting mad over something dumb by not appreciating that someone told me to commit suicide, which I don't see as a joke. And by the way, we could actually turn his same logic against himself because if it was dumb for me to get mad about a supposed joke like that, he got mad at me muting him. So it's it just goes both ways where it's like, you're the one that's investing all this time into trying to, like, dig up posts and laugh at this and, just like I'm that's why I feel so conflicted with regard to the moderator of that server because I joined that thing to speak to him, which means that he's indirectly responsible for anything that happens between me and this other guy. Because if he had never said, "Oh, join my server," or otherwise, like, I won't speak to you, then I wouldn't have joined, period, would have never encountered this person. So it's I don't know, I just feel like a sense of betrayal in a way. Just like I just can't imagine something like that happening under my reign, especially like right in front of me, like while I'm there in the VC with these same two people and just like allowing it to happen, like not putting my foot down and saying, "Hey, enough is enough, stop." I know Akatsuki merchant went to bed and I'm talking to myself, but it's just not something I could really wrap myself around doing because I think if a person is there to speak to me and I want to speak to them in this capacity where it like forces them to be around people they might not want to be around, I should make at least a tiny effort to say, hey, leave them alone. So I always just thought it was so weird how like Every time you get burned on Discord, it's all based around trying to be sociable or having some dialogue with someone, and it just seems like the more people you try to talk to, or even just with certain people you try to talk to, because there are some that, are willing to do the stuff I like, um, there's just this weird pushback that I've never quite been able to understand, like, why get mad, like, at someone sending you a friend request? Like, if you don't wanna talk to them, just don't accept it. Do you really have to make a seven-person group to talk trash about that individual? Um, like, if you don't like some, what's another way of putting it? Trying to have another example. If you don't want to speak to another person, why not just not talk to them? Do you really have to sit there and try and make fun of them over public posts? It's just I don't. That's why I said that, like, from this point forward, I'm done. I'm never going to join another person's server. If someone says, "Hey, I want to reconcile with you," I'm just gonna ignore them. Because this all started from trying to reconcile with somebody. And I said this before. Every time you give someone a chance to, like, begin anew or to become, what's a good way of putting it? To try and have some decent correspondence with, as you once did, they always find a way to ruin it. I mean, you look at the Discord thing. This is a guy who comes around, oh, I have changed and I'm not the same, and all the usual, Dragon Ball S boast. Um, but then what does he do in this week long chance that he gets? He says that you shouldn't be able to block people anywhere, right? But he also says, and he says that you shouldn't be able to put out someone's, like, private information if they're, like, a troll or something. But then he also says it's free speech to post a streamer's address in their live chat, which we've seen on Twitch multiple times. Um, he like looks up your account after you refuse to give it to him and justifies it that way because he doesn't respect your decision to have some things remain private. Like, I had enough. I really did. You look at the what was that? The Dear John letter writer, whatever that woman was, where with that lady, you gave her a chance to speak again, and she tried to say some old weird thing about the reason you can't get a woman is maybe because you say the B word, even though every rapper that has a girlfriend says the B word, and then tries to, just like she starts doing the same stupid stuff of, like, being unnecessarily antagonistic, creating false equivalencies where she says that neither of us was positive in the other one's life, even though she was the one who insulted me and I didn't say anything about her. So I just think that every time you try to give someone a second chance, they usually blow it, which is goes back to my point that there really is no purpose in even trying to get these people to, I guess, understand the error of their ways. Like, they'll say that they do, but it's all the same stuff. I mean, if you look at look at, like, the guy from a couple of weeks ago, right? Oh, I apologize. I shouldn't have been so nasty to you. And then what is he doing in private? Making weird threats. It's like, if you really are so apologetic, why did you make this threat about sharing a video when I'm contemplating doing a video on somebody with 700,000 subs, who is trending on Twitter, which is none of his business. Like I said, people on here are just they're full of it. No, I really I just don't need the extra headache. I've said repeatedly that, like, for some reason people online have a lack of humanity. And excuse me, let me rephrase that. For some reason people online have a lack of humanity when it comes to, like, giving men some type of, like, benefit of the doubt or some kind of leeway. Um, and I just don't understand where if someone says, "Hey, listen, this is bothering me. Can you just please leave me alone?" You have to like keep trying to find ways to screw, and it's like, like I don't need it. And this is something that only happened because I was trying to rekindle something with another person. So it's like, um, why even bother? So I said it's just this weird group of people that just it seems like they just turn their brains off. I was so irritated by that whole thing. On Saturday, I actually like logged into my account for I think about maybe like I think the rest of the day, yeah, until like the afternoon the next day. Because I have like two people I still speak to on there that and they're both kind of on and off. You might hear from one of them once a week or every 2 weeks or 3 weeks. But I was just so frustrated because it's like you really tried to make this work. Like you try like, and that's why I said that relationships, be they platonic or romantic, can only work if people meet each other halfway. Like when you have someone who wants to rekindle interacting with you, but tries to change up the dynamic by having you participate in some group call, which you're not exactly entirely comfortable with, but you do because you want to speak to this person. You compromise with them, right? But then their compromise should be that they should take an affirmative stance against people, or excuse me, one person in that dialogue or correspondence trying to screw with you because you're not doing anything to that person, and they have indirectly put you in a situation to interact with that person because you joined that server to speak to them. So they should be the mediating party because they're the only reason that you're there in the first place. Yeah, they're just really weird. It's just a strange group of people. I mean, I don't quite understand like the desire to just act really antagonistic, and it really feels like it's the same thing happening over and over again with these individuals. Like when I do the thing where I just notice parallels because there's so much stuff they have in common with each other. Seriously, next time somebody says I only want to talk in the server or they try to invite me to their server, not doing it. And there have been multiple, true to form, there have been multiple people that have invited me to servers and I don't join. Um, because I either don't know them that well or I feel like that's just like a bad, because I've noticed one thing that happens is when you join a server, people that would have otherwise been all right with just like DMing you, and even some people who have been willing to do DM calls with me, uh, suddenly don't bother ever setting any of them up because I guess they feel like since you're in this server, they can just hop in there whenever they want to and speak to you. But it's like you said, it's like it's counterintuitive to what I would prefer. See, I don't need it. And really, the only reason I even had a different name on Discord is because I read the room. Like I saw how every time I would go in a server, everyone had a different username than what was their actual name. They didn't show their face. I was like, so yeah, why can't I be given the same courtesy? I mean, I don't understand. Why even bother? But yeah, I've really gotten kind of sick of these remakes because we were talking on Saturday about like how things, if it happens over and over and you still believe it could be different, it's like a self parody. Like the reason I don't ask out chicks anymore is because I know what will happen. You know, you talk to this person for like a couple of weeks, few months. They pretend to be so interested in getting to know you, and then you ask them out, and she says, "I'm not interested, and I only like you as a friend," or "I think we should stop speaking." You know, some variation of those three. But it's like if I were to still believe in them, right, in like the uniqueness of this one particular woman after you've spoken to I don't even know how many across the internet and in real life as well, it would become a self-parody. Like if I truly still believed in this idea of this one particular person that you have this close because you don't I don't get it out of modern chicks. I just don't. Um, but the other part of this is that even with the platonic stuff, like, oh, here's this person I'm gonna speak to, and they're willing to speak to me, but I have to join their server. I'm gonna just say no next time if that happens again because I don't need to have these people acting this way toward me when I'm not doing anything to them. I'm not interested in talking to them. I'm not bothering them. You don't you think I guess what it is like we've talked before about these faceless internet users and how they say stuff online that they would never say to someone's face, which is why they hide theirs when they say this weird garbage. And they feel like the internet should just be this wasteland where you can just say whatever you want and attack anybody and keep messing with them, even though they're not bothering you at all. And I'm just tired of it. I don't know why I can't just be left alone. So yeah, that was the only thing I was kind of annoyed by with the whole, oh, let's give him your account to try and attempt to mock you over stuff that you were actually embarrassed by, you would have privated or unlisted. Oh, just because it was just like another thing to try attacking me over with, and I just got sick of it. And it was like at the same time this is happening, this main mod is just sitting here, doing nothing to stop it. Yeah, it's just a really garbage situation. But it's one that has a lot of similarities to past arcs of like weird stuff people have done. I mean, I remember very vividly like being on I think it was what website was it? Maybe it was Reddit. Where did I meet that woman? Oh, now I remember. There was a woman I met on Skype, and I used to talk to her, and then she like rebuffed my advances or something. And I made like a video about how she was a keyboard warrior. And then like the day after I made the video, or the same day I made the video, she called me and was trying to like confront me over what I said about her. Where it's like drama from one side follows you to another. I didn't feel bad either because my thing is, if you're gonna sit here and call somebody out their name and attack them and say all this other gross stuff, why can't they respond back? And she felt the need to tell me that she was watching it with ad blocker. And it's like, I mean, even if you were watching it with ads, if you skip before the first 30 seconds, it's not going to do anything for me anyway. But it's like that's when you know that someone's like really powerless, where they have to go. It's kind of like if I said, I'm going to attend uh, your dancing recital, but when you go up to dance, I'm going to look away. It's like, but you're still there. It's like this little tiny attempt to make you, I guess, feel bad or feel like they've done something to you. Ah, these people. I think we're pretty much done here. I'm trying to think. I think we got most of the gist of this saga, uh, you know, explained. I will say that I probably, as bad as that site has proven itself to be, I'd still say I like it more than
than Skype. But the thing is, on Skype, I don't remember having controversies like this where someone said this about this person. Because what the difference between Discord and Skype is that Skype was a site where you met people who you already knew on there, like and you would just talk to them. It was kind of like a way of being able to call somebody without paying a phone bill, which is why you even had some people who recommended doing that, where you like don't even you just have a couple of people call you on Skype and that's it. Um, but I'm just saying, like, I don't remember there being even a fifth of the drama that goes on Discord, and like even on other websites too, where like most drama that seems to get initiated is maybe like you make a post, somebody doesn't like it, they leave some nasty comment. But as far as like a real like ongoing back and forth thing where both sides are like like it really is just Discord that's like that, where they just where someone wants to screw with somebody and they ask to be left alone or they screw them back or something. But pretty much you're in a condition where you just can't win, because if you truly just don't want to bother with this person, just want to be left alone, you're expected to sit there and just not say anything back. And that's what like drove me crazy about the thing on Saturday, because it's like if I were to then go and call him something and then like say all these type of antagonistic, insulting things back, I would be seen as provoking further like arguing and attacking of him toward me. So it's like when you say, hey, look, I don't want to bother with this, can you just leave me alone, you get the same result anyway. It reminds me of that stream I did where the one guy got like really butthurt that I liked LBJ, and I said, as he started like listing off all this supposedly horrible, terrible stuff that Johnson did, some of which was correct, some of which was incorrect, or excuse me, had no sourcing, so it could have been stuff that he just made up. I said, look, I'm not going to argue with you. And as I was talking on the rest of my stream about whatever the topic was, he just kept going and going and going and going and going. You were like 17 comments, talking to himself pretty much. And I was explaining to one of my mods back then, I was like, I don't know how else I could have handled that, because this guy is offended by me liking someone that he doesn't. And he's also offended by me not being willing to debate him, when I know that if I try to debate him, it's probably going to end with him calling me stupid, right? Because I have an opinion that differs from his own. Um, and then him, saying, "Oh, I can't take you seriously anymore. I'm not watching you anymore," which is what he did anyway. So it's like, if you don't argue with this person, they try to argue with you and get mad and like vanish. And then if you try to argue with this person, they're going to get mad and then argue with you and then vanish. So you see where it's like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Where you just basically have to operate like this. You make the stuff you want to make, and if people react to it in a certain way, I guess just ignore them. Like there's really like nothing you can do when someone wants to have a problem with you, because if you don't exchange dialogue or metaphorical blows with them, they'll still try to like find a way to instigate something with you, and it just seems like for us, like for a situation where I came to just talk to one person or to a few people and wasn't bothering this guy, it just seems extremely, it's kind of like overkill in a way. Like, okay, this person is not bothering you, you keep screwing with them, but then somehow they're the one who's there's something wrong with, really. So yeah, that's why I learned from that exchange with that guy 3 years ago that like some people just, it's not about being reasoned with, but it's like basically creating these sadistic choice situations where you lose either way, where if you argue with this person, they're going to get more provoked to keep saying nasty stuff about you, right? And if you don't argue with this person, they're going to keep like saying nasty and negative stuff about you until you just you know cut all of them off entirely. So I feel like I was presented with a sadistic choice on Saturday, so I just said, all right, well, you can't win either way, but at least if I leave, I don't have to read any more of this garbage. Oh, what did Wolverine say in the season two? I think it was the second episode of season two of the X-Men series. You don't kick a man while he's down. That's exactly what happened on Saturday. I said, man, it's crazy. Like one of the few times I get to be home alone for like most of the day. It had to be ruined or otherwise like worsened by this thing with this guy because that lasted for like 2 hours or 3 hours. And besides that, it was an okay or decent day in the sense that that's why I said that like most of the time when I go on some site and post something, that's just it. I don't really sit there and just have someone calling me out of my name and insulting me, and then like I'm expected to put up with that. I said before that like people just they're just really unnecessary with the way they choose to act, and I think that um, sometimes you really just can't navigate it in a way that can leave you unscathed or otherwise leave you in a position where you're not being attacked. So that was the biggest takeaway from this new remake of what happened basically back in May with a few alterations. That's so crazy how like both of them, like I just thought about it, they're both moderators referring to this lady and this guy that runs the server, and they both like didn't want to do DM calls, right? uh, for whatever reason. And then they both, after they did one before, did multiple ones before, and then they both have like some person in their server that like says something rude or nasty to me and then they defend it or otherwise try to like make it not seem as bad as it was. Um, because like I said, if I went up to some person in real life and said, "Hey, can you pull the expletive out of your backside or whatever," I would get in trouble. If I did that in the workplace, I would get in trouble. If I did that just talking among people I'm friends with, I would get in trouble. Like I don't. So I said people in real life, and even the people I speak to online, don't talk this way to each other. And if I went around telling people to commit suicide and to get deadly diseases, I would be seen as mentally ill. Like there was something wrong with me. But hey, when you're online, I guess plot armor just rules the day. So thanks for watching. Really tired of these remakes. Want some new material. And it just seems like in some situations there's nothing you can do to not get like what consider to be a disproportionate amount of blowback. Like if I was insulting this person, they insult me back, whatever. But you're not insulting or bothering anybody, and then you start getting attacked left and right. I think that's really ridiculous. But that again, like we know based off of the stuff people have written to the romance stuff in particular in the past, that's not anything new. So which is why I said it's a remake. So thanks for watching.